I stepped into our home, feeling the familiar mix of exhaustion and relief. The day had been long, filled with endless paperwork and meetings. But now, I was home. The scent of dinner still lingered in the air, a comforting reminder that I wasn't alone in this world. "Hey, champ," I called out as I walked into the living room. Bruno was sprawled on the floor, surrounded by his toy cars, his face lit up with pure joy. "Daddy, look, I built a racetrack," he exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. I knelt beside him, admiring his handiwork. "Wow, Bruno, this is amazing. You've got quite an imagination, buddy." He beamed at my praise, his little chest puffing up with pride. "Do you want to play with me, Daddy?" "Of course," I said, ruffling his hair. "Just give me a second to change out of these work clothes." Bruno nodded, already absorbed in his game again. I headed upstairs to our bedroom, the silence a stark contrast to the lively chatter downstairs. As I changed into a comfortable t-shirt and jeans, my mind wandered to Amanda, my mother-in-law. Ever since Camilla's death, she had been a thorn in my side, constantly blaming me and threatening to take Bruno away. I couldn't let that happen. Bruno was all I had left of Camilla, and I would do anything to keep him safe. Back in the living room, I found Bruno eagerly waiting for me. "Ready, Daddy?" "Ready as ever," I replied, sitting down on the floor beside him. We spent the next hour racing cars, building ramps, and laughing together. For a while, I could forget about the tension with Amanda and just enjoy being a dad. After we finished playing, I took Bruno into the kitchen for dinner. I had made spaghetti earlier, a simple meal that he loved. As we sat at the table, I couldn't help but smile at his messy face covered in tomato sauce. "Daddy, do you miss Mommy?" Bruno asked suddenly, his big blue eyes looking up at me. The question caught me off guard, but I managed to keep my voice steady. "I do, Bruno. Every day. But you know what? She's always with us, in our hearts." He nodded thoughtfully, twirling his fork in his spaghetti. "I miss her too, but I'm glad we have each other, Daddy." "Me too, champ," I said, feeling a lump form in my throat. "Me too." Later that evening, after Bruno was tucked into bed, I sat alone in the living room, the weight of the day finally catching up to me. I picked up the framed photo of Camilla from the coffee table, tracing her smile with my thumb. "I promise, Camilla," I whispered to the empty room. "I'll keep Bruno safe, no matter what." Just then, the phone rang, pulling me out of my thoughts. I answered it, recognizing Laura's voice on the other end. She had been a great help since Camilla's passing, always ready with a kind word or practical advice. "Hey, Victor, how are you holding up?" she asked. "I'm managing," I replied, grateful for her concern. "It's just, Amanda is making things really hard." Laura sighed. "I know, but you're doing great, Victor. Bruno is lucky to have you." "Thanks, Laura. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out," she said softly. "We're in this together." As I hung up the phone, I felt a glimmer of hope. With Laura's help, maybe, just maybe, we could get through this. For Bruno's sake, for Camilla's memory, and for our future. It was a quiet evening, or at least it was supposed to be. Bruno had just fallen asleep, his soft snores filling the house with a sense of peace. I was finally settling down with a book, hoping to relax a bit before bed. But the peace was shattered by a loud knock at the door. I knew who it was before I even opened it. Amanda had a way of making her presence known. "Victor, we need to talk," she demanded, not bothering with any formality as she pushed past me into the living room. I sighed, closing the door behind her. "Amanda, it's late. Bruno just went to bed." "This won't take long," she snapped, turning to face me with fire in her eyes. "I'm tired of pretending everything is okay. We both know it's not." I crossed my arms, trying to stay calm. "What do you mean?" "You know exactly what I mean," she said, her voice dripping with accusation. "You're not fit to raise Bruno. You couldn't protect Camilla, and you can't protect him." Her words cut deep, but I couldn't let her see that. "Amanda, I'm doing the best I can. Bruno is happy here. He needs stability, not more drama." "Stability?" She laughed bitterly. "He needs a proper family. I can give him that. You can't." I took a deep breath, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Amanda, I love Bruno more than anything. I'm doing everything I can to give him a good life." Her eyes narrowed. "A good life? Living with a man who let his wife die? You're delusional, Victor." I felt my hands clench into fists at my sides, but I forced myself to stay calm. "You don't know what happened, Amanda. It was an accident. I would never hurt Camila." "Maybe not on purpose," she said coldly, "but she's gone, and it's your fault. And now Bruno is suffering because of it. I couldn't hold back any longer. That's enough. Amanda, you're not taking Bruno away from me. I won't let you." She took a step closer, her face inches from mine. "We'll see about that, Victor. I have lawyers, and I will fight you every step of the way." "Do whatever you have to," I replied, my voice hard. "But Bruno stays with me." End of discussion. Amanda stared at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she turned and walked towards the door. "This isn't over, Victor, not by a long shot." As she left, I felt a mixture of anger and fear. Amanda was serious, and I knew she had the resources to back up her threats. But I couldn't let her win. Bruno was my son, and I would do whatever it took to keep him safe. I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. This fight was far from over, and I needed to be ready for whatever came next. For Bruno's sake. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Laura. "How did it go?" I quickly typed back. "As expected. She's not backing down." A moment later, her reply came. "We'll get through this, Victor. I'm here for you." I felt a flicker of hope. With Laura by my side, maybe I had a chance. We'd face Amanda's threats together, and we'd find a way to protect Bruno. For now, that was enough to keep me going. Laura arrived at our house early on Saturday morning, her usual bright smile a welcome sight. She carried a stack of files, each one filled with notes and evidence we hoped would help our case. "Good morning, Victor," she greeted, setting the files on the kitchen table. "Ready to dive in?" I nodded, pouring us both a cup of coffee. "As ready as I'll ever be. Thanks for coming over so early." "Anything for you and Bruno," she replied, taking a sip of her coffee. "We had a lot to go through. Amanda isn't going to make this easy." I sat down across from her, feeling the weight of the situation settle over me. "I know, but we have to find a way to prove that Bruno belongs with me." Laura opened one of the files, spreading out the contents. "First, we need to gather character references, people who can vouch for your parenting and the stable environment you provide." I thought for a moment. "I can ask my neighbors, some colleagues from work, and maybe Bruno's teacher. They all know how much I care about him." "That's a good start," Laura said, jotting down notes. "We also need to document any evidence of Amanda's behavior, anything that shows she's not acting in Bruno's best interest." I sighed, rubbing my temples. I've kept records of her visits and the arguments we've had. It feels like a never-ending battle. Laura reached out, placing her hand on mine. "You're doing great, Victor. We just need to stay focused and keep gathering evidence." Her touch was reassuring, and I felt a surge of gratitude for her unwavering support. "Thanks, Laura. I don't know what I'd do without you." She smiled warmly. "You don't have to find out. We're in this together." We spent the next few hours sorting through the files, organizing our evidence, and making plans for the upcoming court date. Every piece of information felt like a small victory, a step closer to keeping Bruno safe. As we worked, Bruno wandered into the kitchen, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Good morning, sweetie," Laura said, her face lighting up. "Did you sleep well?" Bruno nodded, climbing into my lap. "Yes, Auntie Laura. What are you and Daddy doing?" "We're working on a project," I explained, wrapping my arms around him. But we can take a break now. How about some breakfast? His face brightened. Pancakes. You got it, I said, ruffling his hair. Why don't you help Auntie Laura set the table while I cook? Laura winked at Bruno. Come on, kiddo. Let's get this table ready for some yummy pancakes. While they set the table, I started mixing the pancake batter, enjoying the simple, peaceful moment. It was moments like these that reminded me of what I was fighting for. After breakfast, Laura and I returned to our work, but this time with Bruno sitting nearby, drawing pictures and occasionally chiming in with his own thoughts. Do you think Mommy can come to my birthday party? He asked suddenly, looking up from his drawing. Laura and I exchanged a glance. We'll see, buddy, I said gently. Right now, we're just trying to make sure everything is okay. Bruno nodded, accepting the answer with the resilience only a child could have. Okay, Daddy. As the day went on, Laura and I continued to piece together our case. We knew Amanda would stop at nothing to win, but we were determined to fight just as hard. By the time Laura left, we had made significant progress. I walked her to the door, feeling a mix of exhaustion and hope. Thank you for everything, Laura, I said, giving her a hug. I don't know what I'd do without you. You don't have to do this alone, Victor, she replied, hugging me back. We'll get through this together. For Bruno. I watched her drive away, feeling a renewed sense of determination. The game was on, and with Laura by my side, I was ready to face whatever came next. Back inside, I found Bruno playing with his toys, his innocent laughter filling the room. I sat down beside him, pulling him into a hug. We're going to be okay, champ, I whispered, more to myself than to him. We're going to be okay. As we played together, I felt a flicker of hope. The road ahead was long and filled with challenges, but with Bruno's laughter and Laura's support, I knew we could make it through. For now, that was enough. It was late in the evening, and the house was quiet. Bruno had fallen asleep hours ago, his soft breathing a comforting sound from his room. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the pile of documents Laura and I had been working on. The weight of the situation pressed down on me, but there was also a flicker of hope. We were making progress. The phone rang, breaking the silence. I picked it up, recognizing Laura's number. Hey, Laura. I greeted, trying to keep the exhaustion out of my voice. Victor, I found something, she said, her voice urgent. Can I come over? Of course, I replied, curiosity piqued. I'll be here. Within 20 minutes, Laura was at the door, a thick folder clutched in her hands. She looked determined, her eyes filled with a mixture of excitement and concern. What's going on? I asked, ushering her inside. I've been going through more of Amanda's emails, she began, setting the folder on the table. And I found something important. She pulled out a series of printed emails, spreading them out in front of me. These emails prove that Amanda has been lying. She's been planning to fabricate evidence against you. I stared at the emails, disbelief and anger mixing in my chest. How did you find these? Laura smiled slightly. I have a friend who's good with computers. He managed to retrieve these from Amanda's email account. Laura, this is incredible, I said, feeling the surge of hope. This could change everything. She nodded, her expression serious. We need to present this to the court. It's our best chance to show them the truth. As we talked, the clock ticked closer to midnight. Laura was about to leave when she paused, turning back to me with a hesitant look. Victor, there's something I need to tell you, she said softly, her eyes meeting mine. My heart skipped a beat. What is it, Laura? She took a deep breath. I've grown to care about you and Bruno more than I ever expected. This fight isn't just about helping a friend anymore. I have feelings for you, Victor. Her confession hung in the air, and I felt a mix of emotions. Gratitude, relief, and something deeper. Laura, I care about you too, more than I can put into words. She stepped closer, her hand resting on mine. We've been through so much together. I just want you to know that no matter what happens, I'm here for you." I pulled her into a hug, feeling the warmth of her presence. "Thank you, Laura. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out," she whispered, her arms tightening around me. We stood there for a moment, wrapped in each other's embrace, finding solace in the connection we had built. When we finally pulled apart, there was a newfound sense of understanding between us. "Let's win this fight," I said, determination in my voice. "We will," Laura agreed, her smile filled with confidence. Together. As Laura left that night, I felt a renewed sense of hope. We had the evidence we needed, and we had each other. For the first time in a long while, I believed that everything would be okay. The next morning, I woke up early, feeling more determined than ever. I prepared breakfast for Bruno and me, the simple routine bringing a sense of normalcy to our lives. "Daddy, can we go to the park today?" Bruno asked, his eyes bright with excitement. "Sure, champ," I replied, ruffling his hair. "We can go to the park." As we sat down to eat, I couldn't help but feel grateful for these moments. They reminded me of why I was fighting so hard. Bruno deserved a happy, stable life, and I was going to make sure he got it. After breakfast, I called my lawyer, informing him of the new evidence we had found. He agreed to meet us later that day to discuss the next steps. When Laura arrived, we headed to the lawyer's office together, the folder of emails securely in my hands. We were ready to face whatever came next, confident that we were on the right path. The fight wasn't over, but with Laura by my side and the truth on our side, I knew we had a real chance. For Bruno, for Camila's memory, and for the future we were starting to build together. As we drove to the lawyer's office, I glanced at Laura, a smile tugging at my lips. We had come a long way, and there was still a long road ahead. But we were ready. For now, that was enough. The day of the trial arrived, and I felt a mix of nerves and determination. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my lawyer beside me, while Laura sat directly behind, her presence a comforting anchor. Amanda was across the room, her lawyer whispering in her ear. She looked confident, but I could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. This was the day we had been preparing for, the day we would fight for Bruno's future. The judge entered the room, and everyone stood. As we sat back down, I took a deep breath, ready for whatever was to come. "Mr. Thompson," the judge began, looking directly at me, "you claim that Mrs. Thompson is unfit to care for your son. Can you please present your case?" My lawyer stood up, nodding to the judge. "Yes, Your Honor. We have evidence that Mrs. Thompson has been fabricating stories to make my client appear unfit. We would like to present emails that show her intentions to deceive the court." He handed the emails to the bailiff, who brought them to the judge. As the judge read through the documents, I glanced at Amanda. Her face was pale, her confidence visibly shaken. "These emails are very concerning," the judge said, looking at Amanda's lawyer. "Do you have any explanation for this, Mrs. Thompson?" Amanda's lawyer stood up, attempting to remain calm. "Your Honor, my client was under extreme stress and—" "That does not excuse such behavior," the judge interrupted. "We will proceed with the evidence at hand." I felt a surge of hope. This was a significant victory, but I knew we still had a long way to go. Next, it was Amanda's turn to present her case. She took the stand, her voice steady, but her eyes filled with anger. "Your Honor, Victor has never been able to provide a stable home for Bruno. He's been irresponsible and negligent. I fear for my grandson's safety." I clenched my fists, fighting to stay calm. Amanda's lies were infuriating, but I had to keep my composure for Bruno's sake. When it was my turn to testify, I took the stand, my heart pounding. I looked at the judge, then at Laura, drawing strength from her unwavering support. "Mr. Thompson," the judge began, "why do you believe you are the best parent for Bruno?" "Your Honor," I started, my voice steady, I have always done everything in my power to provide a loving and stable home for Bruno, my wife, Camila, and I built a life together with our son at the center of it. Since her passing, I've dedicated myself to ensuring Bruno's happiness and well-being. I paused, glancing at Amanda. Amanda has been trying to undermine me ever since Camila's death. These emails show that she's willing to lie and manipulate to take Bruno away from me. But I promise you, Your Honor, I will do whatever it takes to protect my son. The judge nodded, seeming to consider my words. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We will now hear from the character witnesses. One by one, my neighbors, colleagues, and even Bruno's teacher took the stand, each of them speaking about my dedication as a father and the loving environment I provided for Bruno. Their words bolstered my confidence, and I could see the judge was taking their testimony seriously. Finally, it was Laura's turn. She took the stand, her voice clear and calm. Your Honor, I've known Victor for several years. He is a devoted father, always putting Bruno's needs first. I've seen firsthand the love and care he provides. Bruno is happy and thriving under his care. As she spoke, I felt a swell of gratitude and admiration for her. Laura had been my rock through this entire ordeal, and her support meant everything to me. After all the testimonies were heard, the judge called for a recess. I stepped outside the courtroom, taking a moment to breathe. Laura joined me, her hand resting on my arm. You did great, Victor, she said softly. We've done everything we can. Now it's in the judge's hands. I nodded, trying to steady my nerves. I just hope it's enough. It will be, she reassured me. We have the truth on our side. When the recess ended, we returned to the courtroom, waiting anxiously for the judge's decision. The minutes felt like hours, the tension almost unbearable. Finally, the judge returned, and everyone stood as he took his seat. He glanced at the documents in front of him, then at Amanda and me. After reviewing the evidence and hearing the testimonies, I have reached a decision, he began. Mr. Thompson, it is clear to me that you are a loving and dedicated father. The evidence presented shows that Mrs. Thompson has acted in ways that are not in the best interest of the child. He paused, and I held my breath. Therefore, I am granting full custody of Bruno to Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Thompson, you will have supervised visitation rights. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. Laura squeezed my hand, her smile radiant with joy. Thank you, Your Honor, I managed to say, my voice thick with emotion. As we left the courtroom, I felt a sense of triumph and gratitude. The fight was over, and Bruno was safe. With Laura by my side, I knew we could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Outside, Bruno ran up to me, throwing his arms around my neck. Daddy, did we win? I hugged him tightly, my heart full. Yes, champ. We won. We're going to be okay. Laura stood beside us, her eyes shining with happiness. Together, we walked to the car, ready to start the next chapter of our lives.